Hey HTDA, and today I want to show you Godless, an indie roguelike auto-battler, which is a game that might not be to everyone, but I kinda enjoyed it, and considering it's definitely one of those indie games that is easily overlooked, I wanted to show you for that reason. The story behind this game is explained in the tutorial, but I'm actually gonna skip that because the tutorial itself is not very interesting to watch. The basic idea is that we are the last god on our world, and we are going to be taking revenge on all the humans on the world and on all the other critters that are walking around because they killed all our friends, all the other gods basically. Now, in order to do that, we are going to be protecting our shrine, and there's different shrines you can unlock, but for now we have two available for us. One is the Ether Shrine, which is basically the stationary shrine, kind of like what you would imagine when you think of a shrine, but some of the others are really interesting. So for example, we can have the Magma Shrine, which is actually a unit on itself. It will walk around. Now this is obviously very nice because you get an additional unit, but bringing your shrine that you need to protect into battle is not necessarily the best idea, so this is definitely something you need to build around. However, for this demonstration, I'm just going to go with the Ether Shrine, which is going to give us additional Ether, which is basically the money in this game, if there's no adjacent units. And we kind of don't want anything to be adjacent, because that means that no one is attacking us. For every run you can customize a couple of things. You can set your skills, there's other things that you unlock later on. You can set anomalies that you can either reroll or add or remove depending on how many of these crystals you have. Now I already did that and I spent all my crystals, so we are going to be able to place our shrine on only certain hexes, but we get additional health as a return, and all the continents are going to be slightly larger, so that's kind of nice to have room to play with. You can also set the difficulties for each act, so you can say, for example, like I've done over here, to start either easier or harder depending on what you want to do. There's a lot of difficulties to unlock, but you only unlock once you actually completed the prior ones. If you start out harder, you will get better rewards, of course, more experience, similar like in a lot of other roguelikes. At the start of every run you get to pick 3 skills from a random selection, so that means that by default your runs will be different from each other, and it also pays off to pick skills that kind of synergize with each other, which you can tell right by the colors. For example, I have 2 green ones over here. Green tends to synergize with green, so it's not required, but it tends to be a good idea to have your skills be all of the same color, or at least similar. Aside from the color, every skill also has a mana cost. You can see this one costs 1 mana, this one costs 2, and you only get 1 mana per turn. So you typically want a mix of cheaper spells and stronger spells, because obviously stronger spells are stronger, but if you don't have the mana to cast them, they're not going to do you any good. I'm not going to go through all of the abilities one by one in the interest of time. I am just going to pick the Treant over here because it's a fairly decent unit, has 3 attack and 6 health. It's going to gain 1 attack or health every single turn, so that's pretty nice. And if you're wondering what growth is, if you right click on a unit or any of these boxes, you can hover over there to see the explanations of the highlighted things. So for example, growth means that if any tile changes next to this unit, this will grow, and then it's going to trigger its ability twice every turn. If we choose, if we change the hex again, it will trigger 3 times, and so on and so on. So we want to pick up any skills that changes tiles so we can synergize with the Treant. For our next skill, we actually have 3 interesting abilities that you could all make a case for. The Misty Plateau, though, I think is a little bit too expensive, but it does actually change a tile, so it would synergize with the Treant we just picked up. However, the Arena does the same thing. Well, it does something different, but it does change a tile. It just doesn't have a very interesting effect. It's really cheap though, so we could maybe build a couple of these Treants and then change the tile and make them grow faster. However, I think I'm gonna go for the Zealot of the Circle. This is a pretty strong unit by itself, and it also has a passive ability that is going to change the tile every 2 turns. So if we combine it with the Treants, we have a ongoing trigger for them, hopefully, if we can place this correctly, that is going to make them grow really fast. However, for our third ability, and this was what I was kind of hoping for, we get the Training Camp as an option. This will change the tile to buff an ally that stands on it at the beginning of each turn, so that by itself is actually pretty good already. But since it's only costing 1 mana, we can do this every single turn and hopefully start out with a couple of Treants and then buff them, rather than have to rely on the Zealot to do that. So now all that's left is to go out and destroy the world piece by piece, or continent by continent to be exact. Now I'm not going to explain everything on the screen because most of that will make sense as we play a couple of levels, but the choices that we just made are over here, and here are the enemies we're going to be facing on the next continent, so you can kind of scout them out and see what you're going to be dealing with. However, we're just going to dive in and do some battle. And here we are on the map. We are going to get some of those shards, and we get to decide where we want to start out. Now it is actually worth not starting out too close to the enemy, mostly because that will help us stay alive, and which is, you know, kind of useful. There's also these runes on the map that you can use to power up your shrine as well as your units, and these places of power that will give you additional mana, which are very much worth getting early on. They can only be used once, but if you do, you actually get a lot of mana that you can use to summon additional units, for example, so all of that tends to be pretty good. That also means that I might want to start out my shrine maybe like over here, and then have my units move on to these and get ourselves situated like that. So I am going to place, oh, I can't actually place my shrine over here because I can only do it in certain places, but I think that's okay. We'll just do it over here and still stick with the same plan. Now, we have the abilities that we got earlier, those are over here. If we do complete the level pretty fast, we actually get additional bonuses, so that's worth noting as well. Not necessarily something we need to aim for right now, because we do want to make sure we stay alive. If we place a unit, you can see by the arrow where it's going to be moving, and this is going to be picked up, the additional mana is going to be picked up on enter. So we want a unit to move into this tile in order to get that bonus. So we're going to start out one treant, I think, over here. And then we want to summon a second treant over here, and then move into these tiles. And hopefully that will work like intended. Actually, I'm not entirely sure if picking this up changes the tile in such a way that it will trigger growth, but we're going to end the turn and find out. Now you can speed a lot of things up. I'm actually going to slow it down a little bit so you can see what's going on. Now it's going to be buffed because it started out in a forest, and the same holds actually for my shrine. So placing my shrine in a forest was not a bad idea. The health will carry over from map to map, and there we go. We got some of that growth going on, and as you can see, my units are now slightly stronger than they were before. Okay, so we just gained a lot of mana thanks to picking all of that up, so we have another 3 mana now. So what I could do is, let's say I put a treant over here. There's a couple of things I can do actually. I can make 2 very strong treants, or I can make 3 of them slightly weaker. Actually, maybe 2 very strong ones is not a bad idea. So what I can do is, if I place a training camp over here, that should grow the 2 treants next to it. Yep, there we go. They both grew. So that means they will now trigger their ability twice every turn. I can't do that in such a way that I can trigger both, I think. Let's see what happens if I place another training camp under here. So that only triggers this one. And then if I place a training camp over here, that will trigger the other one. So each one is now going to gain 1 attack or health 3 times every single turn, which is really good. And because they start out their turn on a training camp, they will also gain 2 attack just from that itself. So they're going to grow pretty strong in the next turn. So you can see these enemies actually getting some health because they started out in a forest. I gain some attack from being on the training camp, and then they are going to grow from their own ability, and they're going to move towards the enemy and start hitting. Now this one will start out on another training camp at the start of the next turn. They are damaging my shrine a little bit, which is a little bit unfortunate, but it is what it is. I'm going to be summoning another training camp under here, growing this one once more. Now hopefully it will gain some health as well to make sure it stays alive. There's the attack from the training camps. You're allowed to gain some more attack, you know. You don't need to just gain health. stop the raining fire down on my shrine, please? Anyway, yeah, all of that is fine. I'm going to buff this one a little bit in order to hopefully keep it alive. Or maybe I should just invest in this one too, because I'm pretty sure that one will at least stay alive. Grow this one a little bit further. It is now growth how much? Growth 3 already, so it's going to gain 4 attack or health every single turn. And this one is probably going to kill that one, but we're going to find out. And I think you can see why speeding things up is not necessarily a bad idea, but it is what it is. Now this one is probably going to attack there. Yep. So we just lost a treant, which is kind of a shame, but we'll need to work with that. We can either pay tribute, add 2 attack to a unit, and if it exceeds his health, which this one would, we actually get some ether as well, or we can buff our treant quite a bit, but it also means that every single enemy on the next continent will be stronger. So I'm going to go for the safe option, do this, like that. We could either grow this even further. Do I want to do that? I can just spam training camps all around and make this treant a hulking unit and go with it like that, or save up some mana and then go for maybe a zealot or another new treant instead. Actually, let's see if this works. There we go. And grow this one even further. Now grow 4. Let's speed things up a little bit if we can, something like that. And it just took out a unit. Now this was just wave 1, so we're going to get another wave, but now we start out with a very strong unit. We can triple the speed rewards as a reward for killing an enemy, or killing a wave to be exact. We can also set a forest on fire, or we can create a random beneficial tile. Let's go for the tile. Let's create that here, because that will grow this one even further. And this is a haunted village, which will increase the power of any unit we summon next to it. We can create a mysterious swamp as a reward for killing an enemy, or we can buff our treant and have it attack, but it cannot attack at the moment, so it feels like it's better to pick this one. But this is how you get those ascension points, so it's worth taking that into consideration as well. But for now, I just want to optimize my gameplay, so I'm going to make our treant even stronger. Growth 6 already. That's almost ridiculous, to be honest. I actually did this so many times, I now have more tiles than I know what to do with. I could just replace a tile with another training camp and make this even stronger, but it feels like that might be a little bit overkill. So I'm just going to save my mana and maybe summon something like a zealot or maybe another treant in the next round. 30 attack is quite a bit. 8 health is not though, so I am going to summon another treant, even if it's just to kind of take some of the attention away from the other one, because we do not want this one to die. It's going to one-shot pretty much anything that it comes across though, but it will take damage if it stays too close to things. So there we go. Yeah, gain some health please. And this one is going to summon some tiles of its own. I hope it's somewhat clear what's going on, because this game can be quite confusing at a high speed. We can have our enemy take more damage, which is honestly not a bad idea, but let's create another mysterious swamp and maybe do that over here, so these two become once again stronger than they were already. And then we can replace that with a training camp. And do that again. I'm liking this combo really, which is completely different from any run that I've done so far. We're going to end our turn once more. There's stuff happening over here, not entirely sure what's happening, but you can just sometimes just ignore that. And then we can get that enemy killed. The next one spawns quite conveniently close to us, so we have that going. We can either freeze 2 units, which means they cannot move, they can still attack though, and gain some ether. We can double any unit's stats and apply poison to it. 13. And it means it's going to take 13 damage every round. Or we can have one ally of our choice devour all adjacent allies and gain their stats. Now, if you are not sure what to pick, you can hide and just kind of just look around and see what happens. Yeah, I kind of don't want to do any of that. So I guess freezing units and gain 5 ether is fine. Oh, and then we would need to pay? Well, I kind of don't want to do that. We could also just double the stats on this one and then have it gain 13 poison. None of this sounds good, guys. Yeah, I'm not sure what to pick here. Well, we could have this one devour this one and gain all its stats. I'm wondering if the growth transfers as well. I guess we're going to find out. It does not. Well, now we know. We can create a loyal village, which would add health. And that's probably not a bad thing to do. So if we do that over here. Here we go. We can grow this once more. It now has growth 9. And we can summon another one of these. And now it has growth 10. We're just going to end this level with a hulking treant, just like we intended from the beginning. Actually, just watching this go up is taking quite a bit of time, but it's really satisfying. Okay, so we can grant a morale boost to an enemy. This is actually a very strong buff. This is going to gain 1 attack to this unit every single turn, which is really good. Or we can do 5 damage to a unit. If it gets killed, we gain 1 mana. But I'm going to go for the morale boost because that's just too good to pass up. It doesn't really matter, honestly, because this unit is going to one-shot the one next to it on the next turn. So we might as well just buff it even further. Growth 11 is insane. And then just go pew-pew at it. And we will have defeated our first continent. Once it gets done growing, of course it is. Victory! Now at the end of every level you get some rewards. And I will show you that. There's this nice little chest, we can open it. And we get a whole lot of different things. We first of all get to pick a reward skill. We can destroy some tiles, which could be okay, but this is a scroll, so this is a one-time use. We can get some ether, some money. Or we can get Unholy Touch, which is a very expensive spell, but it will swap the attack of 2 units. I think we're just going to go for the ether. It's a little bit boring, but we have plenty of use for that, hopefully, in a moment. We got some health from being really fast. I think this caps out at 50, I'm not entirely sure. It might not, because we did take some damage at the beginning. And then we just earned 15 nature energy, which will be allowing us to train some additional skills once we get to a specific zone that allows us to do that. And this continent was destroyed. We're now going to move on to the next, but between every continent there's a couple of random levels that you can pick between. So we could go to the Forge, which would allow us to merge sparks of creation into gems and upgrade them. However, we don't have any of those. We can also go to the Sanctuary, which will allow us our shrine to get a passive perk, which is always nice. Or we can take the bottom road and get a mysterious power at a crossroads. However, that also means that we get to the Forge where we have nothing useful to do, while the middle road over here will lead us through a merchant, which allows us maybe to spend some of our ether and get something useful out of that. Okay, so let's start out with the Sanctuary. We get to pick between Unwavering Faith. Upon summoning the shrine, against 2 health for every adjacent tile, which is really good. It basically means we get a free health boost at the start of every level. We can either get... Oh, this is a pretty decent buff to ether on the end of every battle, so that's a nice one. Or we can add 1 health to the ally summoned not next to the shrine. It's just 1 health, but it is 1 health on every single thing we summon. Honestly, not entirely sure which one is the best. Again, it just depends on what we get after that as well, but this one is always good because it will just buff our shrine and make sure we can keep it going longer and longer. Now we can spend some money to buff our shrine even further, and I'm actually going to do that because these passive buffs tend to be really good. Okay, so add 1 ether whenever you create or destroy a tile. This is not changing a tile, I think, so let's see what else we have. You can teleport the shrine to an adjacent hex of your choice every 5 turns. We can actually move the thing. Or we can add 7% of health and attack to ether at the battle's end. So this is a worse version of the thing we got before. I am not entirely sure if this works with the training camp, so let's just find out. If it works, it's going to be a pretty steady income stream because of that. Now, I'm actually going to spend another 70 to get another one. So we can either upgrade the Rich Shell, but I'm not entirely sure if this is actually if this is actually going to work like I wanted to. So this could get us some additional ether, and this would make our shrine be more defensible. This is pretty good for some shrines, but we're trying to not get hit to begin with. So I'm gonna go for the ether, and hopefully that will just help us get stronger and stronger as long as we go. If we want to pick up something like this, you want to pick up it up early on, so you get the most benefit out of that. Then we are going to move on to the vendor. Now we don't have much ether left, but hopefully maybe we can pick up something nice. So we could actually pick up a spark. Which is not the worst idea in the world. We can pick up some health, or maybe a new skill. We could buy that Misty Plateau that we skipped before. Let me read through these and see what we pick. So, quite frankly, I don't really like any of these abilities, which should not be surprising because none of them are green, so we got a little bit unlucky here, because they don't really synergize with what we're trying to do. I think I'm just going to go for a Spark of Nature, because this is a green gem. Potentially, if we can find another one, and if we have 2 of them, that might be a really powerful upgrade. So what's interesting is that on the next continent we will have explosive runes, and enemies destroy tiles they step on. So this could be actually really beneficial for our Treants if that works with the growth, because the tiles do change. It's just not me doing it, so not entirely sure if it will work, but again, we're going to find out. So we're on the second map. We have a Sage over here, which is not that strong. But we also have another unit over here that is going to do 4 damage to all adjacent enemies just by moving. So which is actually really strong, and on top of that it has a boatload of health. I'm gonna start as far away from this one as I can, even though I do have this ability that gets me 2 health for every adjacent tile. So ideally I would place it somewhere in the middle and get the maximum out of that. Having a defensible position by itself is also really important. There's no point in gaining a lot of health if we're going to lose it right after. So starting out over here is, I think, a pretty decent position. And there's a lot of runes as well as places of power for mana over here. So all in all, I think we could do a lot worse. So let's do that. Gain a bit of health, and now we're at 58 already. Okay, so let's speed things up. I think we're just going to go with the same plan. Maybe summon 2 Treants and take it from there. Okay, so how about this? If we summon a Treant over here, this is going to go and pick up some more of this mana. And then if we do another one over here, this is going to gain some more extra attack. Alternatively, I could summon one over here and gain another mana, which might not be a bad idea, because then they have 3 mana next turn. So we can summon another Treant and then summon a training camp as well, hopefully in a position that will allow us to buff all Treants all at the same time. So yeah, that sounds like a pretty decent option, so let's go with that. Let's end our turn, and then see, we are close to dying already. We're probably going to lose a couple of these Treants along the way, but I don't think there's any way to avoid that. This one is actually not moving, so it's not destroying any tiles. It is going to kill this Treant most likely. So let's summon one over here. Yeah. And then let's summon a training camp in the middle. That's going to buff all of them. And end our turn once more. I'm trying to keep up the speed, because as you can see, these games can be quite slow-ish to watch. So hopefully that will improve your viewing pleasure. Now, these things are going to get pretty strong. This one is going to die, which is a shame, but Not the worst thing to happen. I am going to summon another one of these training camps over here, which is going to buff both of them. And then hopefully they can kind of start working on taking this thing out together. I don't think they will manage that this turn, which is a shame. But on the next turn, they should be just fine. And then I have a little bit of time to gather some strength before we need to deal with this one. I am actually going to place a training camp here. This is not going to buff this guy, but it is going to buff the Treants once they move in here, which is probably going to happen as they kill the guy in front of them. There we go. They are gaining back some health. This guy only has 3 health, but remember on move it also does 4 damage. We can buff the attack on one of our Treants, and we would also get 8 ether because they are both on relatively low HP, or we can give them a lot of health. We do need to keep in mind that we only have 1 wisdom and we have 2 honor already, so I think it makes sense to go for this one. And then probably buff the one that is already the strongest, which is this one. And there we go, we gained some ether for that as well. And then now what we can do is put a training camp over here and buff both of them. We are now in growth 3 and growth 4 already, so pretty nice all in all. This one is already on 68 health. This is going to be great for later down this run. And we are going to be destroying this guy pretty soon. I am once again going to put a training camp in front, having these guys grow even further, and you can see the combo doing its job right here. Okay, so a little time skip here out of respect for your time. I was able to keep up these Treants for quite a long time. As you can see, they're really strong now, almost ridiculously so, and we are now on the last wave, so we can almost one-shot these guys right now. I have a little tiny Treant over here that's probably going to die, but hey, maybe if it can take a hit, it's going to protect its larger friends, so that's all good to me. Now this guy has 39 health attack. Can gain 1 more, yeah, this one should one-shot that one as well, and then we completed another level. For my rewards, I can pick some death energy, which is never a bad choice to be honest, but I kind of like this frenzy scroll, which is going to allow any unit to attack all adjacent units. So if we can put this on one of our overpowered Treants, so when we have any, this is going to murder everything around it. It is all adjacent units, which is a mistake I made before, so this will hit allies as well, so we do need to be careful about it, but it does kind of synergize with the whole super unit type of thing. We also get a fair bit of ether and health because we completed the level pretty fast. We gained some energy, some nature energy, and the neutral type of skills get a random energy, and this time around we got some death energy. Not the most useful, but hey, it's free stuff we get anyway. We actually have quite a bit of ether, and normally I would probably go down this route and pick up some more passive perks, but this time around I am going to go to the chamber, which is going to allow us to use our energy. You can actually also use this ether to buy additional energy, so hopefully we'll have enough to do exactly that. Now you can see there's thresholds, there's 25, 60 and 120 that you need to get before you can actually use those, pick those talents, but we already have 25 in the green one, so I can use that to pick a talent. Now we can either have regeneration on a chosen ally on turn 5, again, if you want to know what it is, 2 health to this unit every single turn, so this could make one of our Treants even stronger starting on turn 5. Or we can spellbind the first summoned ally each battle and add 3 health to it. Now what a spellbind, that means that any spell or scroll we use in it triggers twice. So basically we can have either a stronger Treant to begin with, or we can have a regenerating Treant starting turn 5. Let's go with the regeneration. I think it fits with the theme we're going for. Now let's see. If we get another 35 energy, then we would be able to get another skill point. I don't have quite enough ether for that though, so I'm not going to do that right now. I could opt to get 20 of this. I do have enough for that. And then buy this talent, but that, again, seems a little bit of overkill and it's not going to synergize most likely with what we have. So let's just stick with this. Instead, we're going to go and spend some of our ether in the second place of power, which is the Forge. We already have one of these sparks, one of the green ones. I'm going to buy another one with the use of some ether. And then we can pick one over here as a secondary, and then we can make ourselves a sacred emerald. Now this is going to be a tile that's going to copy itself every time a unit enters that, and that's going to synergize perfectly with our Treon, so this is going to be awesome. Now I am going to have to combine it with the training camp. I believe that is how that works. I am not an expert in this game just yet. Now we have a gem over here that we can apply, and then we can apply that to this, I believe. That's how that works. Yep, over here. And now this is going to be affected by that sacred emerald and have an additional effect and do two things at the same time. The next level is going to be a boss. This is going to be very strong and it's going to damage the shrine with basic attacks from any distance. But luckily we have 84 health, so I think we should be just fine. We're also going to have enemies doing +5 damage to units with higher health, which is kind of a shame because I am hoping at least my Treons will have high health. But anyway, there's nothing we can do about it other than re-rolling, but I don't want to spend my ether on that, so let's just dive in. Well, Talvius for now is an undefeated knight, but let's make sure that doesn't stay like that. Now, there is a whole lot of different type of things on the map, so we're going to have to check that out. If you don't like your map, you can recreate it, but it is going to cost you ether, so typically you want to stick with whatever you have. Okay, these war graveyards are going to buff him every time he enters one of them, so we don't want him to run all around the map and get super strong. Yeah, so that's a thing. What are these things? Quicksand. On enter, stuns the entering unit until the end of the next turn. So that is something we need to take into consideration. I am going to be changing most of the map quite quickly, hopefully. So if we start, for example, with our shrine over here, can we? No, we can't, of course, because that would be too easy. I kind of want to have my shrine on a forest tile. So I could place it over here. Again, not get the full benefit, but I think that's going to be okay. I don't care about being close to my shrine with my units. So yeah, I'm just going to start out over there, gain some extra health, and I think that will be fine. Can we pick these up? Yeah, we can. If we start out over here, so I think that will be fine. And then there's not too many of these graveyards in between us and the enemy, but we do have some time to gain strength, because otherwise he's just going to murder us outright. So, 1, 2, and turn, and let's see what happens. We're going to pick up some mana, that's a lot of mana right there. Then what we can actually do, we have 3 mana. We can have one over here. That's a lot of growth. We can either summon another Treant. I should have done that first then, but okay. Or we can just try and make these two as strong as we can possibly make them. Again, this is the eternal question. I am still not entirely sure what the correct answer is here. But having 3 of these might be really good. Yeah, I think that is probably the better solution over here. Oh, actually, I thought I had another mana. I made a slight mistake there, but I think we'll be just fine. Now this one is going to move in here. That is going to make another training camp. Does this training camp also have... So these training camps will keep multiplying if we let them. So I am going to make another training camp over here to make sure that we get rid of as many of these war graveyards as we can. And also hopefully... Let's see where this one is going to move. Yeah, it's going to move in here, so it's going to spawn another training camp, and hopefully the other ones will be adjacent to that. Is that going to work like I wanted to? Not entirely sure. And this guy is going to be really strong. But the training camps are multiplying, quite heavily actually. So our units are getting that growth buff going pretty nicely. So we're going to spawn another training camp in the middle over here. Make all of them stronger. Let's see if this is going to be enough to defeat that boss. He is really strong though, so that's a little inconvenient. And sadly all of our units seem to have 9 health, which is exactly enough to be one-shotted. at least this one has enough health now to stay alive for a little longer. But yeah, he one-shotted the one that he could, which I don't blame him. I would have done the same. But let's make our treants as strong as we can get them. And keep going and keep whacking. Okay, so this is going to put regeneration on a chosen ally. This one is the strongest, I think. This one has growth 5, this one has growth 7. So actually this one is stronger. This one has more attack though. But keeping this one alive is probably best. And most likely. So we're going to go with that. 18 attack is a lot, so we don't need to stay alive for a much longer. Our combo is paying off. I think we're actually going to end on higher health than we started. I'm not sure if I put another training camp over here, does that count as changing a tile? It does. So we trigger the growth on both of them once more. I do hope this guy can gain a little bit more health, up to 10 health, so it can stay alive. Or maybe his strength is going to kill the boss? Never mind. Oh, the boss actually came back. What? And did damage on death. That is not a good thing. But I can do 5 damage. Is that worth it? Maybe actually. Because it only has 38 now. He did resurrect with a lot less attack damage, so I think we'll be just fine. So let's do 5 damage, soften him up a little bit. Summon another training camp over here, like that. And then hopefully we'll have enough to either one-shot him, or to simply destroy him on the next turn. 30 is not quite enough, but yeah, just do this once more. And we will be killing the boss in no time. So as you can see, we're doing quite well, but that is because we're taking full advantage out of all of these combos that we have unlocked so far, and every run is going to be completely different. I've never done it like this before so far, and I've already done like 4 or 5 runs. So yeah, it is definitely really addicting, really fun if you like roguelikes. It's a pretty quick game, and you can just save it and continue if you don't complete it the first time around, so that's something to keep in mind as well. Since we killed a boss, we are now at the end of Act 1, and that means we get a consequence we can pick. These are kind of story-driven things, but most importantly they give you one pretty significant boon, but also a drawback on top of that. So for example, we can get a massive discount on all the goods from the merchant, but we will get an additional Elvish warrior in every single wave, so that's actually going to make that quite a bit difficult. We also get ascension points out of all of these options, and you can see if we pick one of these two, then we would actually have enough to ascend and become a god of blood. That means we get a bone horror on turn 7, and it gains +2/+1 for each dead unit, so it's gonna be pretty significantly strong. I'm actually going to go for the tyrannical rain, because that means all enemies receive 3 damage each turn, which is really good obviously. We do need to make sure that we do not summon enemies ideally next to our shrine, because they will attack it. Although if we keep that in mind, it's not going to be the biggest problem in the world. Alternatively, this option would get us a lot of stuff, but also make bosses a lot stronger. So might be a pretty decent choice in some runs, but I don't really have any of these ascension points yet, so I think this one is going to be the obvious winner. And I think this gives you a pretty good impression of the game. From this point onward, you just keep going, you add passives, you can get more upgrades, things like that. You fight more and more powerful enemies, and at some point your run is going to end. Oh, and in case you're wondering, that whole hulking treant thing actually works pretty well if you really focus on it. As you can see, this thing has over 100 attack and health once it is actually done upgrading this turn. Well, assuming, yeah, thank you for not making a liar out of me, it gets the right stats. But yeah, this is stupidly strong and is going to completely demolish any enemy that tends to get in its way. Once you do get defeated, that's not the end of the world, because you will get a score depending on how well you did, and you can use that to get all kinds of nice upgrades for your next run. You can unlock more and more upgrades as you play, and on top of that, of course, every upgrade you get will make you stronger, so it allows you to get further and further as you go. But probably more importantly, you can also use that experience to unlock new shrines. Every shrine works completely different, so that it gives you a lot of replayability in this game, because that means every run, other than all the other things that are already kind of randomized, will also help you get a completely different feel for the runs associated with that particular shrine. And like you can see, there's a total of 7 of them, so there's plenty of things to do there. So there you have it. This is Godless, not particularly maybe everyone's cup of tea, like I said in the beginning, but if you do like your roguelikes and you kind of like auto battlers and things like that, then this game is probably one you have never heard of, because it's an indie game. It's about $10 I believe on Steam right now, so it's not the cheapest game out there either, so make sure you pick it up only if you actually like this type of game, but if you do, I think this is a pretty good one. Either way, if you're still here, you're awesome, and I do hope to catch you in the next one.